Well, Blazer fans, welcome back to the Blazer Victory Podcast, episode number 54. This is your co-host, John Duncan, and as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Steve Irvine. And guys, UAB pitches a shutout effort on the road, 34-0 over those mustard buzzards. Steve, how you doing, man? I mean, we're both doing right.
Yeah, I mean, it's always good to beat those guys, no doubt. I thought, the cool thing or the good thing was it was contributions on all sides.
Yes.
Obviously the big special team play, but offense, defense. It was a good day. I mean, it was very little to nitpick about. Other than a fumble into the end zone that should have been 41-0.
Yeah.
Other than that, there's you'd have to really nitpick to find something bad to say about yesterday, and just big win, and kind of takes a little bit of the 37-2 taste out of your head a little bit, and
Yes.
and move on.
Yes, and Clark and company, they were motivated, and they, even said immediately post game after last week's game that they didn't remember they didn't forget about what happened in 2019, losing 37-2 to Southern Miss. But I selfishly was hoping that we were going to hang 50 on them, or at least 70. But hey, just a really dominating effort, as Steve, you just said, on all three sides of the ball. Really, the spark that I think kind of got things going for us was, UAB was up 3-0, and I believe it was the first play to start the second quarter. UAB had a 4th and 2, decided to go for it, and Dillon found Garrett Prince wide open for the touchdown to make it 10-0. And then I believe on the next drive, Southern Miss, punted, and Grayson Cash having another big play again today against Southern Miss, blocking the punt and recovering it in the end zone to go up 17-0. So I believe those two plays really just swung the momentum, for UAB in that game. First quarter, we were up 3-0, but it really kind of took those two plays, and we just, didn't look back from there on.
Yeah, I mean, that's a pretty good way to look at it, and that second quarter was great all the way through.
Yes.
And just really, it took the defense a minute to just kind of get adjusted out there, and not that they played poorly early on, just had a couple tough times tackling Frank Gore, and he's a shifty, strong little guy, and
he is.
And you had to sort of adjust to that a little bit, and then for the defense to give up 107 yards in the entire game. That's pretty darn good now.
Yes.
Win a lot of games doing that. So, just again, it was just the second quarter was certainly the best quarter, and I just kind of cruised after that.
Right. And listening to you guys on the broadcast, Steve, and also just post game with Bill Clark, Southern Miss on the offensive side of the ball ran a lot, especially that first drive, a lot of 12 personnel. And UAB and Clark had said, they had planned for that a little bit, but really Southern Miss hadn't showed that really hardly any at all this year so far. So it really did kind of take that first drive, for UAB to adjust defensively. But I will give credit on that first drive of Moultrie getting that big tackle for loss to take them out of field goal range. That was a huge play from Moultrie in that defense. But after that first drive, UAB, just settled down on the defensive side and really just shut down Southern Miss the rest of the game. Southern Miss wasn't able to get anything going. In fact, Southern Miss actually put in their 5th-string quarterback, which was a freshman, and we didn't even I didn't even know they had another quarterback on the depth chart other than that coach that they had just moved. So
he's not a quarterback. That's why we didn't know about it.
You're right.
Yeah. I mean, he's a receiver, slot guy, running back.
Okay.
So they just they're just they're searching. I feel bad for Will Hall. I mean,
Me too.
they're just searching, trying to find something. They had the coach would have been the next guy maybe, but they also have another guy that has a shoulder, actual quarterback that has a shoulder injury that can't throw the ball, but they actually put him in the game before against UTEP. and
Wow.
just let him run because but knowing that he couldn't pass. So they're just, I mean, that they were just trying to put somebody in and try to get any kind of spark. And fortunately UAB, that's the thing. I mean, they could have put Brett Favre back there, but if you can't block him up front, you're going to have a tough time. And I thought again UAB dominated up front, and Lang just never got comfortable.
He
He
didn't.
just he started just really just dropping back and just slinging the ball. Um, just because they were after him, and they hit
Yeah.
him, and which we talked about, and they talked about they needed to it needed to happen, make him uncomfortable, and they did. Um, so just if you can't block him up front, it's hard to do anything.
Right. And speaking real quick on Brett Favre, man, if Brett Favre would have been out there, those Wrangler jeans wouldn't have helped him, man. Because UAB
Yeah.
defensive line was nasty in the backfield all game. And we talked about this on our preview, Steve, because we knew how, let's face it, how bad that Southern Miss offensive line was. But it's just great to see, for really a second week in a row, going back to the FAU game, just seeing UAB able to get back there, get tackles for losses again, and get 3 more sacks. Granted, selfishly, I would have liked to see more than 3 sacks. I felt like, we could have, but it was still to see yet another game that the defensive line was making their presence known on the opposing offensive line. So just kudos to really that whole front, everybody that got out there in the rotation Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, I think so, and I think there would have been more sacks if they actually wouldn't have just thrown the ball away, or just throwing the ball, because I mean there was times literally he just dropped back and they'd be coming, and he would just sort of throw the ball, really
Yeah,
not just sort of in the direction of somebody. And and I think the other thing that was huge yesterday was I really thought that UAB covered well. I mean,
they
there
did.
was very little separation, and I don't recall a single time that I can recall that somebody was wide open. Just especially once the game got rolling a little bit. I mean, I thought the coverage was tremendous, so that that helped a lot too.
Yes.
So just a dominating effort.
Yes, and I do want to give a quick shout out to Noah Wilder, man. How about getting 14 tackles in yesterday's game? And I believe is that career best for Noah? That might be a career
No,
best.
I think
Oh, it's
he's.
not. Okay.
I don't think it is. I could be wrong, but I thought he had one game last year where he had 17 or so. But
Yeah, but nonetheless, a really great effort for Noah. Yeah.
oh yeah, absolutely great game, and and the great play on the interception. I mean, he's the one that caused the
Hmm.
interception, and really almost had the interception himself. Tipped it up and ball was in his hands, and he got hit and then popped back up, and Kyle Harrell got over and made the play. But Noah Wilder's the one that made the play on that, and
Yes.
so yeah, he was all over the field. I mean, just Noah Wilder being Noah Wilder. I mean, he's
Yeah.
always around the football, and especially when they're in the running game. But it's great to see. It's great to see him really progress over the past 3 years. In the passing game. I mean, in
Yes.
pass coverage. I mean, for him to make a play like that, great coverage. He had to kind of go over the guy's shoulder to hit the ball, and didn't interfere. And really has become a good pass defender. And early on, that was a big weakness of his, when just wasn't good in the pass coverage. But now he's good enough where they don't have to take him out on third down, third and passing situations. They do sometimes just because of the packages they run, but they don't have to,
Right.
and that's that's a good thing. He's become he's over the years has become a complete linebacker, and honestly, he's one of the best linebackers in the conference.
Oh yeah. There's no doubt about that, man. I mean, the way he's playing right now, I definitely put him at the top of that list in Conference USA. But just we've said it a couple times already, but just the dominating effort by the UAB defense. Let's just go over some stats real quick. UAB only gave up 107 total yards to Southern Miss, just 32 yards through the air and 75 on the ground game. Just, I mean, you can't, giving up only, it looks like Southern Miss was only 3 of 14 on third down. So just, I mean, a near perfect, game for UAB on getting their second shutout of the season. Earlier in the year, the first game we shut out Jacksonville State, but getting their second shutout of the 2021 season. I believe this was the most lopsided victory in favor of UAB in the UAB Southern Miss series. So that was good. And just shutting out a conference rival at their place, the crowd was never a factor. I believe they announced 21,000. So, I mean, give kudos to Southern Miss fans on still showing up. I mean, your team's 1-5 and you're still drawing 20,000 plus. I mean, give credit to them. That's a very loyal fan base, just like our fan base is very loyal. But it's just a great feeling, Steve, to just take that crowd out of the game early on and I don't know, man. I can't say anything negative about the defense. Just a near perfect effort. Anything else we need to hit on the defensive side of the ball, Steve, before we move to the offense?
No, not really. I mean, I think the other thing is I thought the defense really played, disciplined yesterday, and they didn't have the, drive extending penalties that have been a problem at times,
Right.
And so I thought that was good. I think it happened one time, but by that time it was late. And, but, other than that, I think, I think they really played a disciplined game, and also, you can't lose sight of just how many guys are still missing, and,
I know.
you still have that effort, and you still have 6 or 7 guys that are in the rotation or starters that that didn't play, and
right.
and so I think that's another thing that you have to look at a little bit and give them credit for that. They just keep they're just so deep there. And just keep finding guys to make plays.
Definitely. Well, let's switch over to the offensive side of the ball. And Dylan Hopkins, the birthday boy, it was his birthday.
Yeah.
It ended up 8 of 13 for 147 yards and a touchdown. As we mentioned earlier, on that fourth down pass to Garrett Prince on the touchdown. After the game, I was kind of worried. He didn't play at all in the second half. They put Tyler Johnston in. I was kind of worried if something had happened. It looks like post game, Coach Clark, told you guys that it was just a precaution to keep him out. But he said post game that he expects Dylan to hopefully be ready for Rice Saturday, which I took as a very good sign because I was really worried at first, Steve. When you don't play at all in the second half, I mean, I know you're up 31-0, but not to come out at all, I was kind of worried that it might have been something, really serious.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's precautionary that they took him. It was kind of a strange situation that he came out after halftime, and warmed up, threw the ball a little bit, and then they took him into the Southern Miss into their football facility. I presume to get some sort of X-ray or something, something along that line. I mean, they took him in there in the medical facility in there. Then he came back out without his pads on, talked to his parents, called his parents down from the stands. They talked to him, and then they ended up, taking him to, I don't know where they took him to the hospital or whatever, but it was just a run test from what I understand.
Okay.
But it was, just precautionary, just to be on the safe side of, I'd have no idea what it is, and really it's none of our business,
right.
What exactly it is. But from what I heard and from what Coach said afterwards, it was precautionary, and they feel good about the situation and feel, hopefully he's doing well.
Yeah.
So it was just a kind of a little strange little situation there that hopefully everything's okay with him, and I think it is. I mean, but again, it's none of us really know exactly what it is. But anytime a kid faces that type of thing where they have to take him to get checked out wherever it may be, it's scary a little bit, just because you don't know, and but I mean he looked fine, he was walking fine, he just didn't seem to be in any pain, from what you could see, and so I think we're very encouraged by it. I think and we'll see going forward. I have no idea what happens going forward. On at this point, I don't think they might know at this point, but certainly after the game, they really didn't know for sure. But yeah, and the good thing is it being termed, I guess, as precautionary, instead of just saying, hey, yeah, he had a problem. It was just more of a, hey, let's make sure this is okay. And so we'll see moving forward. I thought he played really well in the first half. He missed some throws, but I thought he had command, did a good job of making good decisions of when to run and when not to. And he had the one drive that was funny where he basically missed 2 touchdown passes and then ended up throwing a touchdown pass where
Yeah.
one where the deep ball to Shropshire that he underthrew, that Shropshire came back and made a nice catch on, and then he missed somebody else. I don't remember who missed. I think it was Garrett Prince deep, and then he ended up hitting Garrett Prince for a touchdown. So, I thought he had a solid first half or solid game, and moving forward, we'll see what happens.
Definitely, and it was good too, though, to see Tyler Johnston get in. Now, granted, he didn't throw it much because I mean the game was pretty much already decided. Up 31, 34, nothing. But his stats were Tyler Johnston went 3 of 7 for 18 yards. But like I said, I mean they didn't really do a whole lot. It was mainly just run the ball and get out of there with a victory, and that's exactly what UAB did. Quick shout out to excuse me, Dwayne McBride. How about Debo? 17 carries for 137 yards and a touchdown. It was great to see him. Number one, get over 100 yards, Steve. But number two, getting the bulk of the carries. 17 carries. Jermaine Brown was the next guy that had 7 carries. But it's kind of good to see Dwayne get a lot more carries and kind of Spencer Brown-esque, getting close to those 20 carries a game.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. And what I loved about it was, when he's good, he has those big yards per carry thing, and
Yes.
he averaged almost 9 yards per carry, and that's what you need from him. That's what he is. He's a chunk guy. As far as chunk, moving and change sort of chunk guy. I mean, even though obviously he can bust some real long ones, but he's a guy who, when he's having success, he needs to average 7, 8, 9 yards a carry. That's just who he is, and so that was good to see. Running through people, running hard, running fast. I just thought that he was really good. I mean, he was really good. And and Jermaine Brown didn't have as many carries, but I love what they did with him on the first drive with it, just
Yes.
throwing a little quick stuff, and he made a great play out there, and one where you had had man on man basically out there and made the guy miss and ended up getting a big gain on that first one. And that's what they envisioned him being, more of a guy that you get in space before the season than a guy that is going to get 20 carries. I mean, he's more of a guy getting space. And so when both those guys are doing what you really need out of them, then that's huge. That's huge. So that was, and the rush for, I think 225 or whatever it was as a team, that's a season high. And that's what I kind of expected
Yeah.
every game. I expected them to be averaging about that right now. And so moving forward with what's coming up, that's going to be huge to keep that going.
Definitely. And real quick, back to Jermaine Brown, he was the leading in receptions. Yeah, 4 catches for 48 yards along with 32, but really crucial on that opening drive to help UAB get down to field goal range and get that field goal. So it was great to see Jermaine Brown, making an impact, in the passing game. And we knew he could do that. It's just, going back to a couple games ago, he had a couple of just drop passes, but I mean, Jermaine Brown, looked really well. It's showing off that speed, getting the edge, like you just getting to the edge, like Steve just mentioned, was very critical on the opening drive. So good for Jermaine Brown and just doing a good job. And we mentioned, unfortunately, Stanley did have that one fumble in the end zone that would have made a 41-0. But I don't know, just overall, just UAB looked pretty good on the offensive side of the ball. It was great to see AJ Gates get a couple carries in there. Um,
Yeah.
it's just TJ
Yeah. I mean,
Jones. Yeah. So,
yeah, I mean, you might need some of these guys moving forward, and so to get them a chance to get in, and Lucera got a couple snaps, and
mm-hmm.
obviously didn't throw the ball, which I kind of wish they would have,
Yeah,
even
me too.
even with the score. I mean, just to get him in there
Practice or
throwing,
reps. Yeah.
yeah, but that's okay. I mean, but get him a couple snaps, and Tyler, obviously has to get some rust off. You see that. And one thing I like, I mean, to me that was encouraging about Tyler is is they, called a running play with him, and which shows that he's pretty healthy. I mean, that he's back to full health. Because they wouldn't call a running play,
Right.
if he was still, trying to get back to full health with that hip. So that was encouraging. That just showed me he's fully healthy, and so, you know, I mean, yeah. Hey, again, you'd have to be pretty nitpicky to talk about anything that bad, happened bad offensively. I mean, you're fine, other than the fumble. I mean, and that's not really nitpicking. That's just true. You don't want to fumble in
Right.
that situation. Other than that, it was a good day.
And real quick, going back to Tyler, Steve, I can't remember who had the run. It was in the second half when Tyler was in there, but he got out. It was just a draw play to the running back, but Tyler got out in front of the
Yeah,
running back. It was the lead blocking for him. I said, man, you love to see your quarterback out there. And, he's done that before, but it was great to see him. It looked like he's close to 100% out there. So that was
yeah,
good to see.
yeah, and that was good. You're right. He got down for that. It shows he's healthy too. And hey, Dylan Hopkins had a couple lead blocks on those reverses in the
He
first half too.
did.
So both times threw a nice block. And one time through the block that sprung it. I think it was the one where I don't remember if it was, I think TJ Jones on that one. They got about 9-10 yards, and he was his block that kind of sprung it. And
Hmm.
so and you don't want to see too much of that, obviously.
No.
But, you don't want your quarterback to always be your lead blocker, but in those situations, that's good to see.
Yeah, they love to see it on the sideline. That really gets everybody fired up when you see your quarterback out there just throwing some blocks out there.
Yeah, yeah, no
Uh,
doubt, no doubt.
well, guys, I mean, 34-0 over your conference rival on the road, shutout, complete effort, all three sides of the ball. We mentioned the big Grayson Cash just having another big play again for the second week in a row. We got to find a way to get him on some offensive touches, Steve, because I want to see him out
Yeah,
there, man.
yeah, and I mean, I'm telling you, I've thought that ever since ever since he came to UAB. I mean, just watching him in high school, just the way he can make plays. But I mean, he just makes such an impact when he's out there, and he's always been a playmaker. I mean, he's whether it be the interception against Rice or just kind of just last year to seal that game, and just
Right.
the guy makes plays, and that was just an athletic play, and I really. I almost said on the broadcast, I probably should have. I mean, Will Connor was inches away from blocking the one before,
Yeah, he
and
was.
and I really felt like after that, like they were going to kind of keep coming after him until they got one, and the very next one, they got. But that was just, that was such an athletic play, and I think it was a well drawn up scheme to get there, because there was two or three other guys that were close to being in a position to block that thing too. So it wasn't like it was just Cash, but I mean, he was being blocked and had to reach back across his body with his opposite hand to get that thing. That, I mean, you got to be you got to be the athlete to make that play right there. I mean, that was
Definitely.
an athletic play, and just a huge play. I mean, it's anytime that happens, that's deflating for the team that's punting, and it's a huge pick me up for the team that blocked it. So because we've seen it from both sides, and so you know how deflating it is, and so just another great play by him, and another great play by the special teams.
Definitely. And speaking of special teams, before we get out of here, got to give a shout out to Matt Quinn on getting a career long 52-yard field goal in the third quarter. And it looked like, man, he could have made that from about 60.
Yeah, he kicked it well. I mean, he definitely kicked it well. That was and that was good to see. He's been a little inconsistent for
Yeah,
for his ability, and but to see that, hopefully that'll spark him to be a lot more consistent down the road, because that's the thing, you're going to need every point you can get from now on, from here on
definitely.
out. I mean, I think those 4 games after the break, after the bye, are as tough as they faced in a long time, 4 in a row
Yeah,
at least, and so you're going to need everything you can get. So hopefully they'll spark his consistency, and because that was a heck of a kick.
definitely. Well, also, just believe we hit on everything with UAB. Just a great dominating effort. Also, it was a pretty good day because Louisiana Tech lost too. UTEP beat Louisiana Tech, so it's always good to see those guys lose.
Yeah. I always like that, and in fact, it's funny that I've spent some time when I got home last night reading their message boards to see what they're
were
feeling,
they
and
complaining? Were they complaining about?
there was the funny thing is there was they were complaining they want to fire Skip Holtz obviously, but
Oh my gosh!
they also took some time for some reason to take some shots at UAB. So
Never
so
fails.
yeah,
Never
so
fails.
it's just another day.
Well, all right, guys. We'll be back in just a couple of days to get you ready for UAB's homecoming game against the Rice Owls in just a couple of days. But as always, if you're not subscribed to our podcast on a podcast platform, please hit that follow or subscribe button, whether that's on Apple Podcast, Spotify, iHeartRadio, wherever you get your podcast. Just make sure and give us a follow or subscribe. And we'll be back soon to get you ready for Rice. But as always, guys, go Blazers.